Hey, what is going on, guys? And today we're going to be recapping WrestleMania 41 Night 1. So we're going to be doing my review, my thoughts, my take on all the matches, and just my overall general thoughts on how WrestleMania Night 1 was. I'm also going to be making a part 2 to WrestleMania Night 2. So leave a like and a comment if you'd like to see my reactions and my thoughts on Night 2 as well of WrestleMania this year. I think WWE did a good job. I think WWE had a solid 2 nights of Mania. I know a lot of people will probably disagree with that statement, and a lot of people especially weren't happy with Night 1 and the ending of Night 2. I don't know, I think it's just because I'm someone that it takes a lot for me to not like something, like especially in wrestling. Like, the match has to be pretty bad, or the storyline has to be all over the place, or just the overall finish of the match has to be quite sloppy, or just not make sense for me to kind of hate it. And I know a lot of people are going to say that about John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, so like I said, if you'd like to see my thoughts on Night 2, then leave a comment below. But nonetheless, we are talking about Night 1. So we open the show with Royal Rumble winner this year, Jey Uso, the challenger, going against the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther, who was the current reigning champion, walking into Mania this year. I actually enjoyed this match. I know a lot of people probably had quite high expectations in terms of, like, you know, building Jey Uso up to be, like, if they were going to have someone dethrone Gunther, it had to be somebody pretty high up there, because obviously we had WrestleMania last year where Sami Zayn went into it being the challenger and ended up taking the title off of Gunther, the IC title that is. And a lot of people were, you know, going like, oh yeah, this is the classic underdog story, thinking it wasn't believable that Sami Zayn could beat Gunther. I thought that was a solid match. I thought that it made sense for Sami to beat him. At the time, I thought storyline-wise it should have been Bron Breakker that year, but I mean, we just saw Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, and they've finally aligned Bron Breakker with Paul Heyman alongside with Seth Rollins. That's a whole separate video topic, but man, I'm so stoked about that whole, like, grouping and pairing there, because Bron Breakker should have always been a Paul Heyman guy, right from when they teased it when he was on the phone. Was he on the phone to Bron Breakker, or was he? No, he was backstage with Bron Breakker, I think, at one of the NXT tapings. But anyway, yes, we had Sami Zayn beat Gunther last year, and this year we had kind of a similar underdog story where we had Jey Uso going in as the challenger, but it was higher stakes because obviously it's Gunther holding a different title this time, the World Heavyweight Championship, which he held for a lengthy amount of time, and then obviously the stakes were a lot higher with Jey Uso being the Royal Rumble winner, so he had a lot more to lose than Sami Zayn did last year, and obviously it was for a much bigger prize. It's funny because the Royal Rumble in recent years especially has become something that, like, I think they've even changed the way they phrase it now, like when the Royal Rumble is taking place, because they used to say, you know, the winner of the Royal Rumble gets the main event at WrestleMania, or gets a main event championship at WrestleMania, championship opportunity at WrestleMania, or title match at WrestleMania. Now, they don't really push that agenda so much and make that kind of statement. It's now kind of just like a guaranteed title shot at WrestleMania. Going into this, I thought Jey Uso had a really strong chance of being the main event of Night 1, because it was very obvious that John Cena and Cody Rhodes were going to be main event Night 2. You have Jey Uso win the Royal Rumble in a complete underdog pick, and I know a lot of you probably aren't going to believe me when I say this, but Jey Uso was my pick to win the Royal Rumble. He was my underdog pick right from the start. Like I said, I know a lot of people didn't have Jey Uso as their pick because everyone was picking, I think the top popular three were CM Punk, John Cena, and Roman Reigns, I think. I think people also had, like, Drew McIntyre in that mix as well. Or possibly The Rock, if he had returned. Did I say Seth Rollins? Yeah, Seth Rollins as well. But I saw the vision quite early on. I saw just how hype and how popular and how behind the fans were getting with Jey Uso, especially just with his entrance alone. I mean, he was a top merch seller, and he still is till this day, but at the time going into the Rumble, he was my guy. I was like, I think they're going to go with the underdog pick. Triple H is somebody, and I know Vince had this as well, but Triple H is almost more like this, I think so. He's someone that loves swerving the fans and loves taking us on this ride where he just, like, he's a very, I wouldn't be surprised if Triple H is a Christopher Nolan fan, or like an M. Night Shyamalan fan. Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite movie directors of all time, and if you know his movies, every single one always has a plot twist at the end. They lead you in this direction, same with M. Night Shyamalan and a bunch of other directors, lead you in this direction, and then right at the last second they swerve you. I think that's what the intention going into Mania, mainly going into the Rumble, was, leading into Mania, with Jey Uso winning. I know a lot of people hated it. I know a lot of people weren't a fan of it. We did a reaction video on it and we loved it. My mates were shocked. I was shocked, but I was happy. And I was more just baffled that I got the prediction right. Like, he was my guy. When I put him down, when I wrote him down on my prediction list, as we kind of do for every pay-per-view, me and my mates, we always write down our predictions for every match, you know. I put Jey Uso, and my mates are like, what? Like, Jey Uso. They're like, okay, I see where you're going with it. Like, I'm not going to knock it. but I think both of my friends had CM Punk. And so going into Mania, just for me, there was no possible way that Jey was losing this. I would have been baffled if Trips made Gunther win. Like I said, I could have seen them going with the plot twist of like, building Jey Uso up, having him win the Rumble, shocking the fans, and then just having him lose clean at Mania. But I feel like that would have been a worse reaction. People were pissed at the outcome anyway with Jey winning. I don't know why. You guys loved him months ago. You loved him last year. And it was ever since he went into that Royal Rumble and won the damn thing that everyone was like, no, we don't like this guy anymore. We don't care how cool his entrance is. We don't like this whole yeet thing. Like, no, we don't want Jey Uso versus Gunther. I get it. Jey Uso versus Gunther on paper isn't a very exciting and compelling match. I get that. I think WWE did a good job, and I think Jey and Gunther actually did a pretty decent job with this match. They opened the show, which I thought they were going to do anyway, since it was announced that we got that triple threat match for night 1, Punk, Rollins, Reigns. I was like, I feel like there's no other place on the card but the opening of night 1. I could have seen them maybe opening night 2 with it, but then you had, Cena winning the title, obviously, night 2 for the main event. So I feel like this was the perfect opener. I think it made sense. I think it made sense to have Jey come out and start WrestleMania 41 with the entrance that this guy has. It just makes sense. But here's what I liked about this match that a lot of people probably didn't like. I like how Jey Uso, and you can disagree with this here, changed up his, I don't want to say moveset, but just the way the match was structured. I don't think we saw a single super kick until about maybe 10 minutes into the match, or it was definitely within the last maybe couple of minutes of the match that we saw one super kick. And I think throughout the entire match, we only saw, I think maybe 2 to 3. I think it was 2 super kicks throughout the whole thing. A couple of spears, a couple of splashes, and then obviously a bit of a controversial finish. This is probably the only thing I don't... It's not that I disagree with it, it was the way that it was done. And that was the sleeper hold, like the choke at the end that made Gunther tap out and was the reason Jey Uso won the World Heavyweight title. I love that. I popped for that. I thought it was great. I do think, and I do agree with the IWC, Internet Wrestling Community, when people say that he tapped way too early, like Gunther tapped almost immediately. It had to be less than like 5 seconds that Gunther tapped out. I think it should have been held on a lot longer. Although I am more happy with this outcome than them having Jey Uso put on the sleeper and then Gunther fading, doing the classic hand drops and then they ring the bell. Like, I'm kind of glad Jey didn't put Gunther to sleep. I feel like that would have been almost less believable. When I was watching this match about halfway through, I could tell, I was like, I actually think that Jey might have been even told by Triple H or just with the structuring of the match been advised not to hit any super kicks either at all or limit his, super kick moves, involvement, I should say, because he was wrestling like actually how Jey should wrestle. The overuse of super kicks, that is the one thing I do get why people are so critical about Jey and probably why a lot of people were crapping on Jey winning the Rumble and going against Gunther for the World Heavyweight title and even just him winning. I think he deserves it. I think he's always been the more charismatic of the two, Uso brothers. It's been a long time coming. This man has been in the company for how long? He's never left. Same with Jimmy. They've both been, by each other's side. I thought it was a good match. I don't really get why a lot of people are complaining. The only thing, like I said, I had a problem with was maybe the finish. Like, I liked that Gunther tapped out. I thought that was believable. I thought that was a great way to have him win the title. Because imagine if Jey had speared Gunther like once or done like, I don't know, maybe 3 splashes and then pinned him. I think people would have hated that a lot more because they would have been like, what? Like Gunther lost to a splash or Gunther lost to a super kick and then a spear. Like people would have probably crapped on that a lot more than they did with this. I do see why people are a little bit upset that he tapped out so darn quickly because it was a little strange. Like I think it should have been held on a lot longer. Or I think that there should have been a moment where Gunther hit the sleeper hold on Jey and then Jey looked like he was about to pass out or about to tap out and held it on for a while and then maybe Jey puts him in it or something. I just thought it was different. If going into this match, I would have either thought that Jey would have, hit him and one, two, three off a splash or off a spear. I would have preferred a splash, honestly, because I think the spear should be safe for someone like Roman or like Braun. I'm not saying it looks weak with Jey, but I just feel like it's a lot stronger done with people like, especially like Braun Breaker and Roman Reigns, that they've already solidified that as their, kind of winning move. But yeah, Jey Uso's my guy. I'm stoked he won the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm excited to see who he faces next, like who he goes straight into for his first feud. But anyway, so moving on to our second match of the night, our second match on the card, and this was the match that a lot more people were critical about and that a lot more people were very unhappy about. This was the World Tag Team Championship match between the New Day and the War Raiders. I didn't love this match, if I'm being honest, and I get why people hated it and people just were like, this does not need to be on Mania. This wasn't a Mania-worthy match, even on paper. It maybe could have been like a good 5 years ago. I think the ship had kind of sailed on this sort of feud and this sort of rivalry, and I think it would have been more perfect with a heel War Raiders and a face New Day, especially maybe when Big E was back in the group, because you could have had him going up against, Ivar and Eric. I had New Day losing this match. Originally, I had them winning the titles, but then I changed it because I was like, oh, I don't know if I could see them winning it as a heel without Big E. And the main reason that I put New Day losing and I had War Raiders going over and retaining their titles, because I thought this match was only on Mania, like only on the card for one reason. I thought that was because Big E was going to come back. I had it on my little WrestleMania bingo card that me and my mates did. I put Big E costs New Day titles because of interference. I know that's a little bit of a heelish move, but considering what New Day had done to Big E, and how Kofi and Xavier were treating him and the way they turned their back on him in the first place, I thought it made sense. I thought that he was going to come out and cost them the match and get a big pop. And I don't know, I feel like that would have been a lot more interesting and it would have been a lot more compelling. Yes, the outcome would have been different. The result would have been New Day losing and War Raiders retaining. But yeah, I agree with everyone when they were saying this was a Monday Night Raw worthy match. And even just the match in general, because this was what people were saying before Mania and even after Mania, it was nothing special. I don't know, just didn't really care much for this match, and it's kind of sad to see because there was a time where everyone loved the War Raiders, everyone loved New Day, we were excited to see these teams in action against multiple different teams. They've always been charismatic, they've always been solid, good workers in the ring. But like I said earlier, I think this was just all too late, especially for a Mania match. Like, I don't know why they didn't just put this on either the Raw after Mania or the Raw before Mania, and then you could have either had New Day winning the titles and then just not have a Mania match, or, I don't know, put them on a pre-show, start having pre-show matches again. I would have been completely fine if this match was on the pre-show, but the main problem that I had and that everybody else had was the fact that they had this on the Mania card and not the SmackDown Tag Team title match. A TLC match, which hasn't even happened yet because SmackDown hasn't aired yet, but that would have been a such more compelling match going into Mania. Everyone would have been so hyped for that. I have always been a massive fan of when they put not only multi-tag man matches on Mania cards, but when they put the ladder matches on Mania cards. I really, really miss the days of when I was a teenager and they used to always have ladder matches, Money in the Bank matches at Mania, especially around the WrestleMania 20-ishes, like 25, 26. They always had Money in the Bank ladder matches, which I was always a massive fan of. And so even if they had added 2 other teams to this match and made it a fatal 4-way tag team ladder match for the belts, that would have been so much more exciting. I think people would have been a lot more invested in just the New Day in general and this sort of match. But this match and this spot definitely should have been bumped for the for the SmackDown Tag Team title match. They deserved it way more. They were building it for like 6 months. When you've got guys on the SmackDown Tag Team roster that are much stronger than the Raw Tag roster, like DIY, like Los Lotharios, like Motor City Machine Guns, why are they not getting a Mania match? Like, they are all teams that are worthy of a match. Street Profits as well. I don't know, yeah, I'm just confused as to why they had this match on the card. This felt very rushed, it felt very last minute. It was an okay match, but like I said, this match did not belong in the Mania card, and I completely agree with everyone that were upset. And I think this was apparently the bathroom break match. There was some like fan footage of everybody leaving the stadium and going to get food and going to the bathroom for this match because they knew it was just nothing special was really going to happen. Like I said, the only thing I think some people had in the back of their minds was possibly expecting Big E's music to hit, but we didn't get that, unfortunately. And I think they probably wouldn't maybe do that unless Big E's cleared, which I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but that's where I thought their direction was going with this whole heel turn with New Day in the first place, with Xavier and Kofi turning, was I thought that Big E would eventually come back and they'll have either a 2-on-1 or a triple threat match, which I'd love to see. I mean, hey, there's always next year's Mania, but yeah, didn't see the point in this match, didn't love it. Probably the weakest on the whole WrestleMania card, apart from another match that I'm going to talk about later on. Alright, so up next we had the blood feud match of Jade Cargill versus Naomi. Honestly, this match was pretty good, and this kind of exceeded my expectations. It was rather short, but I love the fact that we were going into this with a heel Naomi and a face Jade Cargill. I think it wouldn't have worked if we had a face Jade and a face Naomi. I loved the new entrance theme and the new gear for Naomi. I was actually behind like Naomi as well, which is not something that I've ever really been. She's a solid worker too, and this match really proved it. And I love how Jade Cargill finally got, a worthy Mania match. This was obviously a massive storyline going into Mania, and it was going on and leading on for months about who attacked Jade Cargill, who was the one that beat her up and left her lying on the car windshield. And a lot of people were speculating, mainly just two people, like obviously they tried to make us think it was Liv Morgan and Raquel, but everyone was thinking it was either Naomi or Bianca Belair. I was on Team Bianca for that one. Everyone was thinking it was Naomi, and I thought it was like a good idea, but I thought that was sort of obvious. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be in this camp, like not to just be different or anything, but I just thought that Bianca heel we haven't had, well, at least we haven't had in a long time. I can't even remember the last time we had a heel Bianca, or if we've ever had a heel Bianca. So I thought Bianca would be revealed to be the mystery attacker, but it turns out to be Naomi. We get this Mania match, and it was solid. I don't really have much to say about it. It was a pretty solid match. It was entertaining. We had some really unique moves. Like there was a point where I think Jade had Naomi up in a electric chair, and then she it was either an electric chair or a powerbomb, and she turned her around to plant her with like a German suplex or a slam or something. It was really creative, and I loved the way they did that. Jade obviously goes over. I think that was the right winner. I would have been actually happy if Naomi had won too. Either way, I think Jade going over was fine. I didn't really have an issue with it. I can see how some people might have thought that Naomi should have gone over, but let's be honest, Naomi was the attacker. She deserves to get her ass kicked in this match by Jade. So I think that was the whole avenging thing. It'd be interesting to see where the direction is for this next, a couple of months, whether we get a Jade and Bianca or a Jade, Bianca, Naomi, Naomi, Bianca, it'd be interesting to see where they go with this, as we are sort of, like I was touching on before, we're sort of getting like a heel Bianca in a way. Like people were booing her at Mania, which was surprising as well. But yeah, so solid Mania match. I think it deserved to be on the card, and they did their thing. So yeah, so up next we had the United States Championship match between Jacob Fatu, I almost said Jacob Knight then, Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight. So Jacob Fatu obviously going in as the challenger, LA Knight the reigning champion. Now, like we talked about with New Day and War Raiders, almost forgot their name, that's how forgettable that match was. So that's so mean, but you know what I'm saying. I, along with a lot of other people, didn't really have a lot of hype for this match. This also on paper wasn't really a Mania match, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. When I saw it got announced, like when I saw the graphic on Instagram, I was kind of just like, that's not really a Mania match. I don't know. I thought they were maybe going with the direction of like a triple threat or a fatal four-way, or just a different opponent for LA Knight. We end up getting Jacob Fatu, and all of us were pleasantly surprised by how damn good this match was. I absolutely loved this. This borderline like stole the show. We had Jacob Fatu obviously going over, brand new US champion, 100% deserves it. I don't think the outcome should have been any different. I think Jacob Fatu was always going to win the title. I think everybody was betting their chips. They're in Las Vegas. Excuse my pun. Betting their chips on a guy like Jacob Fatu to win his first ever singles title in WWE. He is insanely talented, and man, can we talk about that insane BFT counter from the moonsault by Jacob Fatu? It was a little slightly off the way they executed it. Like LA Knight kind of didn't quite have the, cutter position held on like properly when he was landing. But come on, like how many people can realistically be caught out of midair doing a moonsault? Like the practice and the timing for that to be pulled off is insanely hard. So, and I love the way they had the camera angle for that spot was actually brilliant, because you couldn't quite see that it was, that it was almost botched, like it wasn't. But from other camera angles, you could kind of see how it wasn't quite properly executed, but it looked great. The crowd popped for it anyway. I mean, it was an insane move that I've never seen before, even just for like a cutter in general, because that's more what it looked like. It more looked like it was just a cutter, but I thought it was great. I thought, yeah, LA Knight really held his own. He didn't look weak in this match, because a lot of people were predicting that this was going to be a complete squash. Like, even at the start, when the bell rung, I genuinely thought that was what they were going to do. I thought Jacob was just going to come in and squash him within like 30 seconds to a minute. I wouldn't have loved that. It would have made sense and everybody would have believed it, probably. I'm glad they didn't have LA Knight, look weak or just kind of take one move and that was it. So I'm glad that the LA Knight actually held his own and looked good for this match. Jacob Fatu looked like $1 million, and that was always, the plan, I think. So yeah, I loved this match. Thought it was great. Like I said, perfect outcome. Wouldn't have chose any different. And yeah, this took me by a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting this match to be as good as it was. So that's always a W, especially with Mania matches when you're going into something. It reminds me a lot of Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles for WrestleMania 33 that opened the show. Everyone just had the lowest expectations for it. And then when it was over, everyone's, just bar was raised and just everyone's expectations was blown out of the water. And this is exactly what these two guys did. So congrats to them. Okay, up next we have a bit of controversy because this was a different match than what was, advertised. So that was El Grande Americano going up against Rey Mysterio. But obviously the SmackDown before Mania, Rey Mysterio unfortunately got legitimately injured. I don't know if it was his leg or his knee or something. I'm not quite sure what the injury was. I haven't really looked into it, but I just know that he was injured going into the match, so they had to replace him last minute. I think a lot of people were guessing who his opponent were going to be, and we all probably thought Rey Fenix. I know Dragon Lee was thrown around, and I did see that people were actually pretty upset that it wasn't Dragon Lee since he'd been on the roster for so long and hasn't had a Mania match and hasn't really been used a whole lot with this sort of story. It's just another luchador paired with Rey Mysterio that hasn't really done anything. So I could see why people were pretty upset with that. But come on, Rey Fenix, can we talk about Rey Fenix getting a WrestleMania match with only being with the company for what, maybe a month or less than a month? So both Lucha Bros, Penta and Rey Fenix, both got a Mania match in like their first couple of months in the company. Like, that is incredible. I love it. I got this result completely wrong. I thought that Rey Fenix or Rey Mysterio would have been going over no matter who was facing him. I thought he was going to get unmasked already, but I'm glad they didn't, because I kind of love how much everyone's loving this storyline, because I'm loving it as well. They always do this thing of like, they did it with The Miz, they've done it with so many people of like, who's the guy under the mask? Like, he's playing this different persona and he's meant to not be the person that he's normally, I just love when people go along with it as well. Like, all in the comments on Instagram and online, it's like, how did Chad Gable not get a WrestleMania match? Like, Chad deserved this. He's too big to be Chad Gable. Chad Gable doesn't wrestle like that. Like, I just love how everyone's going along with it, and that's the one thing I love about the wrestling community is when they go along with things like this and they just eat it all up. Like, the same thing with Elias being Ezekiel, like that sort of thing. Like, I think we just get to the point where we think it's so silly that we'll just like eat it up and we'll just go along with it just because it's just fun and it's just something that's different. It is kind of a crime that Chad Gable's first ever singles match at Mania was under a mask and not as him and under a different persona. But yeah, I thought Rey Fenix was definitely winning this match. Like, I was surprised when El Grande Americano picked up the W. And man, can we talk about that crazy like reverse 450 senton onto Rey Fenix? Who knew that Chad Gable had that in his arsenal? Like, we know he can pull off a moonsault, but man, I haven't seen a move like that. That is a very indie move as well. I can't even remember the last time I saw something like that in WWE. I used to do that to my teddy bears on my trampoline. If you OG subscribers remember when I used to do like backyard wrestling videos, I used to pull off that move all the time. It's kind of scary because, yeah, it's basically a 450 splash, but you're going backwards, so it's actually a lot more rotation because you have to, over-rotate basically on a moonsault. Landing that, like, the timing on that has to be pretty well done, and man, he pulled that off and really did look like a true luchador. He's really playing the part well, so yeah, I love this match as well. I thought it was great. Thought Rey did well for his first ever Mania. Like I said, such a shame that Rey Mysterio had to miss out on a Mania, but I'm glad that someone like Rey Fenix got to step in and, fill those boots and get his, first ever Mania match, so I think that's a W. Okay, this was the match I was alluding to earlier when I said that I think this was probably the messiest and most disappointing match, at least for me. I know a lot of people are going to say Cena versus Rhodes, but this right here, for the Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, man, I, for some reason, actually had some pretty high expectations for this match. I know people were saying the build wasn't great, but everyone was agreeing that this would be one of those matches that didn't have a great Mania build, like going into the show, but it would like blow your expectations out of the water because of just their athleticism and because of how good they both are in the ring, especially when you've got a vet like Charlotte going up against a somewhat newcomer in Tiffany Stratton, but we know how talented she is and how she always has been since her NXT days. On paper, this is actually a dream match. Like, I was actually sort of excited for this match. Now, I'm someone that I don't really care for Charlotte Flair. I never really have. I've never really liked her, like, ever. I don't know. I just think she's always overbooked. She just wins too many titles. And being Ric Flair's daughter, and I know a lot of people say this, like, with the whole Nepo baby thing and that she's been handed everything she was given. I'm not going to lie. Charlotte is talented. Like, Charlotte is a good wrestler, like, when she wants to be. Like, last year, it was WrestleMania 39, not last year. WrestleMania 39, Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley. Love Rhea Ripley, but couldn't care less for Charlotte Flair. But I really enjoyed that match. Like, that is one of my favorite Charlotte Flair matches ever. my expectations for that were just exceeded. So going into this, I didn't doubt Charlotte Flair because I had done it before with WrestleMania 39 going into Rhea and Charlotte. I just, I was like, why does Charlotte always have to be in the main event picture? Why is she always fighting for a title? She's either winning the title or defending the title. That's always usually how it goes. Now, in my predictions, I did put Tiffany Stratton retaining. I, like I said, tried to change it up and thought of a different way of approaching this match because everybody and their mama thought Charlotte Flair was winning the Women's Championship, and I see why, because it's become a classic meme of, it's the same thing with like John Cena. Charlotte Flair wins, lol, But I just thought that they would go with a bit of a swerve, like I said, how Triple H kind of likes to do that. And I thought that Tiffany should retain, and I'm glad she did, and that's the one positive I do see out of this match. But man, my main criticism with this whole match in general was there was just no chemistry between these two whatsoever. I don't know if they were just having an off night or just something about them two together in the ring just did not click. Like I said, on paper, this is a dream match. Like, and on paper, you think this would be a really decent match, especially like athleticism-wise. You've got, Tiffany, who's basically a younger version of Charlotte. She's very athletic. We've got, her doing things like the prettiest moonsault ever, But it was just very messy. It was probably one of the most botchy matches on the whole card. Like I said, I'm very, very glad that Tiffany went over in the end and she retained her title, because if Charlotte had won, it would have been much worse. It would have been, just even less for me, like in terms of on the card of like, on the scales of best match to worst match. Sorry, worst match to best match. It would have been very much lower if Charlotte had won, but it honestly is pretty low on my overall just ratings and just overall pure enjoyment of the Mania matches. This is definitely near the bottom, or if not the very bottom of the rung. Probably next to, New Day versus War Raiders, but yeah, just the chemistry was not there. I thought these two might have had a lot of chemistry together, but they just didn't. And I think that's what was the biggest thing holding these two back. It honestly sucks because, like I said, I know I don't really care for Charlotte Flair, but it was honestly kind of sucky to see because, like, going into this, you think it would have been a match that would, like, kind of make you excited or have you have some sort of, enjoyment out of it. But yeah, I don't know. It was just, they were very clunky, just very, like, even just the selling from Tiffany too. Like, Charlotte Flair was doing some strange things, but Tiffany is usually a really solid worker. But I don't know, and I hate criticizing people like Tiffany Stratton because obviously she's made it, bigger than I ever will and bigger than most people ever will, and she's such a talented person. And I've just always been such a Tiffany Stratton fan. I loved the whole Barbie doll entrance. I thought that was great. That was really creative. I was really happy when she did eventually cash in and when she won the Money in the Bank in the first place. But she deserves it. She deserves this spot on Mania. You can't take that away from her. You can't discredit that from this match. But yeah, like I said, I don't know, every move they were doing just didn't really hit for me, and it got very physical towards the end. Obviously, you saw the outcome at the end where Tiffany had, like, she'd either lost a tooth or chipped it. I'm pretty sure she chipped one of her front teeth, which looked really gnarly. I mean, she looked like an absolute badass because of that, so that was one good thing. But yeah, like I said, just wasn't a fan of this match. I wouldn't be upset if they ran this back and tried to kind of recoup it and do a better job of it. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't care if they tried to do a rematch for this. Plus, I'd be honestly just scared that Charlotte would win in the rematch. So yeah, but that's enough about that match. Okay, so we have officially reached our main event for night one, and man, the expectations for this were already high, but they were completely exceeded by the end of this. I absolutely love this match. I definitely think this was the best one of the entire thing. I think this and Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight would probably be top two contenders, but you can't really compare those two, especially when you've got a triple threat match that isn't even for a title, and with the three main eventers that are in this, next to, Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight, where they're more in the mid-card, and it was obviously a shorter match. It was for a mid-card title. Triple threats are always very interesting because you obviously have three guys, it's uneven. You kind of have the classic thing of, like, one of them gets, thrown out, and then it's a one-on-one match for a while, and then the other one comes in and then takes that other person out, and then you get another singles match for a while. Like, it's usually just a series of interchanging singles matches, but they did a really good job of just having all three of them, and that was the great thing about it, is there was a reason for all three of them to be in there. It wasn't a case of, like, oh, Seth hates CM Punk, and then Seth has history with Roman. Like, it was so much more than that. You had, Seth and Punk hating each other. You had the history between Seth and Roman. You had Punk and Roman, with the whole dynamic of Paul Heyman being in there, and then Seth that didn't have a whole lot of history with Heyman, and then that was the great part about the whole swerve at the end. And like, obviously, yeah, they've had history together, but not as much as Punk and Roman have. Now, I don't know how many people saw this coming, because some people called it very predictable, and some people said it was unpredictable, and they were completely shocked by it. The thing I loved about this is it was very predictable for me, because I had it on my WrestleMania bingo card. I literally had right in the dead center, I had Seth Rollins joins Paul Heyman. No, I think I had phrased it like Paul Heyman turns on both Roman Reigns and CM Punk to join Seth, which is exactly what happened. But like I was saying, it was predictable, but when it happened, you were still shocked. And that's one thing I love about wrestling, especially when this sort of thing happens. If there is something that is so predictable that ends up happening anyway, but you're still shocked by the finish, that is how you know it's good. And in my opinion, you can take that same argument and apply that to John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. Like I said, I'll talk about this in night 2. I won't go too in depth with this because we're talking about night 1, obviously, and about this main event, not night 2's main event. But John Cena winning was the most predictable outcome by everybody. Everyone thought John Cena was winning. I'm not going to try and be different and unique like I did with the other couple of matches, but I did personally have Cody Rhodes retaining. I thought that John Cena, going against his morals and going against his values would end up costing him. I was going with that sort of storyline, like he's gone heel for the first time in 22 years or something. And so I thought that that would end up costing him because he's going against everything that he's always stood for. And eventually it ends up, biting him in the ass and he loses his chance at getting that, capturing that 17th world title. But I was wrong in the end. But yeah, like I said, Cena winning was very, very predictable move, but when they did it, everyone was still shocked. Like, I don't know if you guys saw our reaction video with me and my mates, but when the referee counted 3, we were shocked. And I even yelled into the camera. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I don't know why. I think it was more because of how the match was structured, and we'll go into that, with Travis Scott getting involved and just the overall match in general. I just love how they did the double swerve, like the double twist. You had him slide the chair to Punk, so you had it going one way and everyone going, oh, he's turning on, his tribal chief, officially. And then you have Paul Heyman come up and you could see him behind him, you knew it was about to happen. You could see it coming with both of them, both Punk and Roman. I think part of it plays into just how kind of slow Heyman was moving and how he's kind of getting up there with, for age. You could see him kind of get down on his knees quite slowly for both of them to hit the low blow. You could just, you could see it coming from a mile away, in my opinion at least. But I loved the double turn. You get him turn on Punk. Oh my God, he's turned on Punk. And you see the expression on Roman's face. That is one thing I love about, especially with Paul Heyman as well, but especially with Roman Reigns, is he's not only a solid worker and got so much charisma, but his facial expressions are honestly up there for me, in terms of just wrestlers that have the greatest and best facial expressions during their matches. Roman is visibly crying, visibly shaking, crying, and smiling at the same time because he can't believe what he's seeing, and he's also so damn happy that Paul Heyman has turned on Punk and that he's chosen Roman instead. We just get the absolutely heartbreaking shot of Heyman turning on Roman. Man, Roman can just not catch a break, right? Everybody and his mama has turned on Roman Reigns. You had Seth back in the day with the Shield. You had Jey Uso. You had the rest of the Bloodline. You had Sami Zayn turning on him. Everybody has turned on Roman Reigns at some point, what it feels like in their career. And I just love how Heyman was that next guy. Poor Roman, man, he's just fallen off the top of the hill and just gone all the way to the bottom. And now Seth is going to be that guy. Now, yeah, if you know me well, you know that Seth Rollins is my favorite wrestler of all time. I was wearing my Seth Rollins shirt for night 1 for our reaction videos. I was so happy when Seth Rollins won. He was my prediction to win as well. I think me and my two mates both, we all had Seth Rollins winning. But I could have seen a case, argued for any one of them to win. And for any one of them for, Heyman to take their side. We could have had Roman win, but I feel like that would have been... For me, it would have been the worst outcome. I don't know, just because Roman... This was what? Roman's 10th main event Mania, I think? I'm pretty sure it was his 10th main event, which is insane for WrestleMania statistics and just for Roman Reigns in general. When you think about all the greats that have main evented Mania before. This was a solid triple threat. I loved absolutely everything in it. Just like I said, the whole dynamic of these three just worked really, really well. I remember when this match was being rumored, a lot of people were like, what? There's no title on the line? What's the point of this? Really? You've got Roman not in a main event? Because this was obviously, when people thought that Jey Uso versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship was going to be the main event of night 1. That was the issue going into Mania this year, especially months prior, is, in my opinion, you had at least 4 main events that could have taken place on either night 1 or night 2. And that was the issue they had, is obviously they had Jey Uso win the Royal Rumble. So yeah, you had Jey Uso possibly main eventing with Gunther night 1. That was always really going to be night 1, let's be honest. I don't see a world where Jey Uso and Gunther would have ever main evented night 2, especially when you have Cody Rhodes versus John Cena being on the same damn card. Yeah, so you had the triple threat match between CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, Jey Uso versus Gunther, and Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. And then another case you can make an argument for would be either, I would say either Tiffany Stratton or Charlotte Flair, but that's not what the one I was having in mind. I was more picturing something like, Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair versus Io Sky as a potential main event for especially night 1. I could have seen them doing that for night 1, but then where would you put Punk, Roman, and Seth? Before they had announced that CM Punk was going to be a main eventer and he was going to main event night 1, I could have honestly seen this match opening night 1 if we hadn't got Jey Uso and Gunther. I really could have seen a multiverse where this match ended up main eventing and like stealing the show, but I feel like that would have made the hype drop quite a lot, because then what would your main event have been? And starting a main event, especially a WrestleMania, with something like this would have been, obviously it would have been super hype and it would have been a great way to get the crowd like just off their feet, but I think you would have killed it in a way. Like, I'm glad this went on, because a lot of people are saying this match saved night 1. I don't really agree with that, because I was happy with night 1, apart from, yeah, like I said, about 2 matches. But I can see why people are saying this saved night 1, because obviously night 2 was a lot stronger, especially for the most part. But yeah, I definitely think this is going to go down as one of the greatest triple threats, maybe of all time, or if not in Mania history. Obviously, we've had a lot of iconic WrestleMania triple threat matches, but this is definitely up there. Like, this was definitely, like I said, my favorite match from WrestleMania night 1. I'm not going to say of all of WrestleMania, because I have a new favorite of just all of WrestleMania night 1 and night 2 combined. There is a match that completely stood out for me. I'm sure you can guess what it is, but I will get into that in the next video when we talk about night 2. I'll give you a little hint. It is also a triple threat match. Completely gives it away, but let's be honest, it was obvious. Oh, phenomenal. Man, I think Paul Heyman joining Seth Rollins and Seth Rollins being a Paul Heyman guy, this is something that honestly should have happened years ago. I would have loved to have seen this back when Seth first turned heel, when he turned heel on the Shield, when he turned his back on Roman and Dean, when he was the authority, like Team Authority Seth, with like J&J Security. Can you imagine a world where back then, like 2014, 15, Seth Rollins was a Paul Heyman guy? That would have been just incredible. I would have loved to seen that pairing. So I'm not upset that we're getting it now. I don't think it's too late, but I also think they should have done it, ages ago. But like I said, it was perfect timing with the relationship between CM Punk and Heyman, and then Roman Reigns and Heyman. Just loved the story of this match, even without the physical side and just the move element of this match. Just the storyline alone was just off the charts, like chef kiss, honestly. Props to Triple H, props to Heyman, props to these three, Reigns, Punk, and Rollins, because this match just stole the show of night 1. And potentially of all of WrestleMania. I would love to hear your thoughts about this match in particular, but just Mania as a whole. What are your thoughts on night 1? What are your thoughts on night 2? We'll get more into that in the next video, like I said. But night 1, what are you rating it? I don't really have a rating for it, because I struggle to rate things like this. Like I said, there's probably only 2 matches that I was disappointed with on this card. Yeah, I loved Mania Night 1. I thought it was great. I hear a lot of people calling it a B show and that it wasn't great and that it just like was trash and that a lot of it was Monday Night Raw level matches. I do see where people are coming from, but when you have a main event of Punk, Reigns, and Rollins, like how can you say that's a Monday Night Raw match? Like there's no way. That was a Mania-worthy match with or without a title. Like I could have seen the intrigue for putting a title on the line, like if this was for like the World Heavyweight or the WWE Championship or whoever would have been champion walking into this, let's be honest, it would have been Roman Reigns. But the fact that CM Punk got to main event his first ever Mania is like iconic. Like I love that he finally got that, whether it was night 1 or not. We're well past the days of having a full, what is it, freaking 8-hour night of Mania. I think that was like what, WrestleMania 35 is when they stopped doing that, because that was just insane and people were falling asleep and the show went past midnight. Like that was ridiculous. I'm glad that we've gotten to a point where we can have 2 main events, especially when you've got people like the female roster that deserve main events. And it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. But yeah, I thought WrestleMania 41 was great. I don't have a massive issue with it. I do agree with how some matches were booked in the wrong way and just weren't all that great and were kind of Monday Night Raw level matches. But yeah, so let me know your thoughts on WrestleMania Night 1. What did you think of it? And also, If you watched the Raw after WrestleMania, did you spot me and my friends appearing on Netflix on Raw? Our reaction was shown for maybe like a second or two with John Cena winning the title. Such a cool moment, and I know a lot of people were commenting on like my YouTube and TikTok and Instagram about it. But if you haven't watched our reaction videos, go watch them. They're kind of just all over my social medias. So I've got some ones with the videos side by side on like Instagram and TikTok, and then YouTube we've got the the full reactions of just us reacting to it, which has been used by WWE, which is pretty freaking sick to appear on Netflix. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow my social medias. So at Jamie_O'Hagan on Instagram, that is where I'm the most active and where I post a lot of wrestling related stuff, especially like reaction videos and all that sort of thing and my thoughts. And TikTok at Jamie O'Hagan. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe. We just hit 11,000 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for reaching 11K. That's absolutely insane. I appreciate every single one of you, all 11K of you, which is just wild to say. So yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.